It's not just one of the games of the year for the NFC West. It's one of the games of the year for the NFL. Seahawks Rams, a showdown at SoFi, and we're previewing it next on this crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and what is up, 12? And welcome to another episode of Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one daily sports podcast network. If you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, drop a comment. Podcast listeners, write us a review, and we've got a jam-packed show. We are previewing one of the games of the year in the NFL between the Seahawks and the Rams. How important is this game? What does this mean for both teams? Cooper Kupp back at SoFi, the Rams, the Seahawks, always a great matchup. And here to preview it with us is, of course, Corbin Smith, Seahawks reporter, the host of Locked On Seahawks, one of the great Seahawks ball knowers in the game. This guy has forgotten more Seahawks football than most people have ever known. Corbin, this is going to be one of the games of the year. We're going to talk about it next. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks is brought to you by Prize Picks. This crossover episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 off in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So first thing I want to say, Corbin, I can specifically remember the NFC West preview episode for Locked On, and everyone's talking about the Rams. Everyone's talking about the 49ers. People were talking about the Cardinals. And I don't think your Seahawks got the respect that they deserved. I think you remember what I'm talking about, right?
Hey, I was on that panel, and I remember telling everybody, hey, you can keep sleeping on these guys. I had a feeling. I didn't know they were going to be this potent on offense. I thought the defense was going to be good. But we're talking about, I was telling a few people this earlier today. This feels like when the 49ers and Seahawks in 2012 and 2013 were at the cream of the crop in the NFL and they were battling each other. That's the magnitude of this game coming up here. 2-7-2 teams that are both top 5 in scoring offense and scoring defense. One offensive guru, one defensive mastermind coaching these two teams. You got quarterbacks that do a lot of the same things. I mean, they have some differences, but Stafford and Darnold have done so many things similarly this year in terms of how they are attacking and obliterating secondaries. I mean, this is just exactly like those 49ers Seahawks matchups were all those years ago. And I could see some animosity building in this matchup because of it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where you have to start is just how good both of these teams are. They're not just teams that are, these are the top teams in the NFC West. These are the top teams in the NFC. These are two of the very best teams in the National Football League. In fact, it will be just the 13th game since 2000 with the top two teams in DVOA. And not only that, if you go deeper, if you want to look at different metrics, Pro Football Focus, the Rams are the top graded team at 93.6 overall. The Seahawks second at 92.9 overall. We look at the offenses, the defenses, how balanced and complete both of these teams are. It's going to be big for a great football game. And I think from a storyline from the Rams side, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of this one, I think there's the emotional aspect, the personal aspect of Cooper Kupp returning to SoFi Stadium, because typically when a former great player leaves your organization to go to a new team, there's these warm and fuzzy feelings, right? He comes back and there's this big video montage, all the great moments, the hugging and dapping and great things like that. I think it's going to be a little different because of how meaningful this game is. I think the Rams are going to be like, okay, play the video. Let's get on with this football game. But tell me a little bit how Cooper Kupp has been for the Seahawks this year and what you're expecting from him in this one.
You know, a lot of people look at the stats and say, well, he's had kind of a quiet season, but he's really played well. He's got one drop the entire year. He had a 67-yard catch last week coming off a hamstring injury that kept him out the week before. So he showed he didn't have any ill effects from that. His run blocking still remains incredible. I think he's as good of a run blocking receiver as anybody in the league. And you also have to keep in mind that it's not that Sam Darnold hasn't been effective throwing the football. It's just Jackson Smith and Jigba has been so good that none of the other receivers have had to have like big volume quantities in terms of what they've had to produce. So I think Cooper Kupp has played well. And it's, I'm trying not to laugh at this comment. I know he didn't do it on purpose with what happened in the NFL over the last week. But I know when Coop was asked about this, about coming back yesterday in a tribute video and saying, well, I didn't die, basically saying, hey, I'm not expecting anything crazy here, but he's going to be looking at this like any other game. At least that's what he's saying. But you and I both know, Doug, there's no way that this is going to be just a normal game for Cooper Kupp. There's no way. Going back to where he played his entire career, now playing for his home state team that just happens to be a bitter rival, like, there's no way. And the Rams maybe have some up their sleeve in terms of what they're going to do before the game, but like, this is tricky. When, like, I remember when Richard Sherman came back to Seattle in a 49ers uniform, like, you didn't have a bunch of montages playing on the screen about Richard Sherman coming back to Seattle for that, or Russell Wilson coming back in a Broncos uniform. None of the, a lot of times that doesn't happen. So I'm curious to see if the Rams actually approach it with, well, hey, here's a light little tribute, or if it's just like, you're an enemy now. We're not doing anything. The crowd can cheer if they want, but that's going to be kind of interesting because I just don't know necessarily what to expect.
All great points, all interesting thoughts, Corbin. And I think that you make a really great point in that, yeah, they're going to want to just get to this football game and not want to lose their edge, right? And I think you look at this Rams team, this Rams organization, they've always been first class. And if it were like any other player, I would say, man, maybe they could just skim through it, gloss over it. But this is a guy who was a Super Bowl MVP. This is a guy that was so integral to their success. If you had to make that short list of the most important Rams since they returned to Los Angeles, he's on that list with guys like Aaron Donald, Sean McVay, and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, right? It's a very, very short list. So he deserves to be celebrated. But I think here's this. The fact that this really isn't the dominating storyline that it could have been, it really is a testament to the Seahawks and a testament to the Rams that it's about just two really good, great football teams that are playing for a lot. And I think you mentioned Jackson Smith and Jigba. You mentioned some of the other elements. That's, I think, the overarching theme is that these are the top two teams, but also the top two receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Puka Nacua. You can make a case the top two quarterbacks in a lot of respects, too, with Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold. And last year, Sam Darnold, he goes 0 for 2 against the Rams regular season and the playoffs. A lot of people thought, oh, maybe that was just a contract year, Darnold with the Vikings. Maybe he was not going to be able to have that success translate to his next team. But you look at the pass rating, look at the success that he's had. Has he exceeded expectations in Seattle? And how do you kind of neutralize him if you're the Rams? How do you think they kind of attack him a little bit?
Well, as far as neutralizing him, you gotta hope you can get your helmet on the football. Literally, that's been about the only thing that has stopped Sam Darnold this year. Has been just untimely throws that bounced off a guy's helmets. I had one against AJ Barner's helmet last game. When he's been able to get the ball out, though, without it bouncing off somebody's helmet, he's just been flat out ridiculous. And this is the stat that is most mind-blowing to me because Matthew Stafford has had a phenomenal season. And I'm sure that you would love to talk about Stafford, and we can have plenty of time to do that. But, like, there are the top 10 QBs for passing yards on deep balls this year, according to Pro Football Focus. 9 of those 10 have a completion percentage under 45%. Sam Darnold's completion percentage is 72%. Wow. That is just flat out ridiculous. And he's averaging 25.1 yards per attempt on those throws. Matthew Stafford's averaging 15.2. And Stafford's having an MVP season. Like, that paints the picture of what Sam Darnold's been doing. Like, this dude has just been annihilating teams throwing the ball downfield. And he's doing it inside the pocket, outside the pocket. It's like any quarterback. If you get pressure, then the Rams know that from getting to Darnold last year. But I feel like this year he's really improved at his pocket presence. He's really taken that next level in Clint Kubiak's offense. So that's going to be kind of a something's got to give type situation here because the Rams are going to look to get after him. And Darnold's been sacked, I believe, 11 times the entire year. He's just been so good at getting the ball out. And that's what's amazing. Both these quarterbacks, as you get a test with Stafford, they take their shots regularly, but they also get the ball out as fast as anybody. You do those two things, it's pretty hard to stop an offense.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Sam Darnold has had a really, really awesome season. It's another homecoming for him, too. San Clemente kid, Dana Point kid, USC kid, a guy that grew up in Southern California. And you look at the passer rating that he's put up, a 116.5 pass rating. That's third in the league. That's right above Matthew Stafford at 114.8. Stafford is on a heater. I mean, 20 touchdowns and no interceptions in his last 6 games, 1,688 yards. He's got a 22 touchdown, no interception streak that he's got running. And as you point out, he's the leader in the clubhouse right now. He's the trendy name to be the MVP. So that's a big showdown too, because if you're Matthew Stafford and this success carries over, you have another 3 or 4 touchdown, no interception game, your MVP candidacy grows. If you're Sam Darnold and you're the Seahawks and you find a way to win this game, there's going to be some more buzz about Sam Darnold as well. So a very interesting subplot. The storylines are aplenty in this one. And in our next, it's unbelievable. This feels like a playoff like game. It really, I mean, it is. It really has like those playoff adjacent feels to it. And coming up next, we're going to talk more about the strengths and weaknesses, the key match of this one. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. And when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electro items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5. That's SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And I'm using Prize Picks during the football season, Sundays, Saturdays, the NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. And some of my favorite features, I love picking my favorite players, like Mahomes and Steph Curry, to see how my predictions play out. The new Stacks feature, it's awesome. It's a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 off in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 off in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. And we are off and running here on this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. And here in our second segment, we're going to get into some of these key matchups, talk about some of these other subplots. And Corbin, the run game. The Rams, it was down for a couple weeks. It picked up the last week. They really have a true two-headed monster with Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. Blake Corum used those outside zones. Kyren Williams kind of more some of that gap scheme, the duo up the middle, a really nice balance there. And then the running game's improved for the Seahawks, it looks like, in the last couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, this has really been the only inconsistency for Seattle's offense all year, has been running the football. But both games against Arizona went for over 155, went for over 200 yards last week. If you don't count the stupid kneel downs at the end of the game, I'm with the players. That should not count against the rushing
Definitely
stats.
Not.
It's just like sacks in college football. That should not count to the rushing stats. Like, just make it individual. Anyway, I digress. But this has been a rushing attack, just like the Rams. It's a two-headed monster. You could even make an argument it might be becoming a three-headed monster, because last week they let George Halani get in on the fun, and George Halani had a touchdown run as well. So Seattle's got Walker, they've got Charbonnet, they've got Halani. And I think in this game, this is going to be big for whoever ends up getting a victory. Whichever team can find the most consistency as far as having a complement to their star quarterbacks, especially considering the Seahawks may or may not have Ernest Jones, whether they may have him back there at linebacker or not. And the Rams, with their situation, having a couple of linebackers that are former undrafted players that are in the middle. And obviously Landman's played really well. Spates has done some nice things, but this does kind of feel like that might be a matchup on both sides. It's got some interest, including in the passing game, getting those running backs involved, throwing the ball out and trying to get one-on-ones against those linebackers.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that both these teams come into this one with some confidence, knowing you got some cohesion on that offensive line. The Seahawks, 198 yards on 46 attempts. I think Darnold just season low 12 passes. You just 2 after halftime. So, of course, that was against the lowly Cardinals there. But it is an area that it feels like the team that wins that battle might have the edge, right? I mean, I think you look at where both of these teams are offensively, you expect to see some fireworks in the passing game. So the difference could be what happens on the ground. But let's get into one of the juiciest matchups, the juiciest subplots in this one, and that's Puka Nacua versus Jackson Smith and Jigba. And yes, those two will not be defending each other, but I think if the team that defends the other one better has more success, there's a good chance that they get the better of the other team in this one. And we'll start with JSN because, look, you look at Jackson Smith and Jigba in the year that he's had, he has lined out wide on 170 routes, 45 in the slot, and it feels like that's one of the pros of Cooper Kupp, allowing him to go outside, not having the slot as much. And the production has been just absolutely off the charts for him. He's the second highest graded receiver on PFF. He's someone that, if it's not for Jonathan Taylor, probably wins Offensive Player of the Year potentially.
Yeah.
What is the key? I mean, you can't really slow down and stop a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, but teams this year that have had any success against him, I mean, what is the strategy to try to neutralize him any way you possibly can?
Look, I'm going to give you a straight answer here. Nobody's stopped him. He has been – last week he would have got 100 yards if the Seahawks would have played him. I mean, second half, they didn't even use him really. They threw the ball. Like you said, they had 2 pass attempts the entire second half, and he finished with 93 receiving yards, almost all that happening in the first half. I thought the Houston Texans were going to be the most formidable team they played, having to go against Derek Stingley and – Lassiter and their secondary, and he just obliterated them. He's been doing it to everyone. So as a football analyst, I could try to give you something. Maybe, the only solution that I can give you is get to Sam Darnold so quick he can't get the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, that's how good he's been. He's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's record, and he's got almost 20 fewer receptions at this point. That's the crazy thing, is he's just putting up massive numbers downfield. He's winning in a number of different ways, and nobody's proven that they can stop him. And obviously for the Rams, with their weapons, with Nacua and the ability of Devontae Adams, those two guys, Seattle's had a lot of injuries in their secondary. This is going to be the healthiest they've been at cornerback, though, really since week 1. They're looking like they're going to have Josh Jobe back. Reek Woolen is playing like Reek Woolen again the last 3 weeks. Devin Witherspoon's playing like Devin Witherspoon after having a bunch of knee injury issues for most of the first half of the season. So they're going to be full strength. That is truly a strength-on-strength thing. And then the Rams secondary, look, you got a new toy you got to deal with now too. Rashid Shaheed didn't get many chances last week because they threw the ball 12 times, but he had 2 runs for 20 yards. He enhances their entire offense. So from both sides of the coin, like, if you love fireworks and you love big plays and you like guys that can create after the catch, like, these two teams have it in abundance with those top 2 receivers on both sides.
Yeah, and I think for the Rams, the hope is that Emmanuel Forbes, who has had some high highs this year, he's had some low lows. It's a former first-round pick from the Commanders back in 2023. They essentially gave up on him. The Rams claimed him. And last couple of weeks, you've seen some flashes from him. And Jackson Smith and Jigba averaging 18.9 yards per catch on the outside as receiver. That's where basically all of his production has come from. So they're going to be relying on Emmanuel Forbes. And last couple of weeks, you're going against the 49ers and Mac Jones. You're going against Shuck and the Saints. Those aren't Sam Darnold. And the passer ratings that he's allowed, 36.5 against the Saints, and then 60.4 and 39.6 in his last 3 with the 49ers mixed in there. That definitely, it points to some real career-changing production from a guy that has always had that untapped potential. But still, I mean, he's allowed 293 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Too many yards allowed, and that just definitely has to be the fear. You also have Kobe Durant that could get some time on him, Quentin Lake potentially. But that, I think, too, is the big wild card, is Rashid Shaheed, someone that was possibly on the Rams' radar a little bit with Tutu Atwell doing a hamstring injury. What kind of packages do you think you could see McDonald and the Seahawks kind of use with him that could possibly take the top off the defense like that?
Well, I don't expect that they're going to be doing anything that's going to be revolutionary in terms of, there's film already out there on what Shaheed does, but they played him out of the backfield a couple plays last week. He had a carry out of the backfield. He'll run end arounds. He'll run jet sweeps. He can play in the slot. He can play in the boundary. You can do the bubble screen game with him. He can win with double moves. He can kill you after the catch. I mean, there's a reason Kubiak was just banging on the table like, let's go get this kid, because he coached him in New Orleans, and he was on pace for 1,000 receiving yards and almost 18 yards per catch in those 6 games before he got hurt last year. So they thought putting him with JSN on this receiving core, they're hoping they can get Torrey Horton back this week. He did not practice, though, for Thursday. So we'll see if he's back or not. But this is really, it's a fascinating game, because I think from the Rams' perspective, it's going to boil down to, are they going to be able to keep the receivers in front of them? Can they limit those big plays? And then when I look at Seattle, it's, can you get to Matthew Stafford quick enough with your interior defensive line in particular? Because as well as the Rams' interior O-lines played, this may be the toughest front they've played, even without Jaron Reed, dealing with Leonard Williams, who, oh, by the way, has had a pretty good career against the Rams, and Byron Murphy, who has emerged one of the best pass rushing interior defenders in the NFL. Those two guys, they're going to have their full arsenal on the outside too. For them, the pass rush, I think, is going to be crucial to try to take those receivers out.
No doubt about it. I mean, I have right here in my notes, that's the number one key. Can you get a playoff level pass rush? And that's the best way to neutralize the passing game. I mean, we saw what happened last year against Sam Darnold. When you can get to him, when you can make him uncomfortable and get him off balance and get him out of structure, that's really your best chance. And really, you look at last week, the Rams allowing Mac Jones to go 33 for 39, and Jared Verse and Byron Young weren't able to get home. You had 4 pressures from Byron Young, but you definitely need to see a very productive day from the pass rush. I think from the secondary, Forbes plus bracket, I mean, there's got to be some type of puzzle pieces in there that Chris Shula is going to be working with. But that's the number one key of this game. If you're the Los Angeles Rams, you have to lean on your strengths, and your strengths is that front four. And that's kind of what makes this game really interesting, is some of the similarities between these two teams. Both teams are in the bottom 4 in blitz rate. The Rams only blitz 17.8% of the time. The Seahawks blitz 17.3% of the time. That's 29th and 30th in the NFL. But the Seahawks, they're 5th in pressure rate, and the Rams are 8th in pressure rate. So Seahawks getting a little more consistent pressure, both in the top 10. But I think that's just one of the big question marks in this one, is who kind of has their day along the defensive lines.
Yeah, I think you hit the hammer on the nail there. And you look at this, all the similarities, like we talked about it on an episode earlier this week, like even the stats almost across the board mirror each other. And it's just crazy how these teams, and look, Sean McVay's offense is not exactly the same as the one that Clint Kubiak runs. Kubiak's is more in line with the traditional Shanahan style scheme, but they run a lot of the same plays, a lot of the same dressings. And McVay's trended a little bit more towards that style offense with the 3 tight end looks that we've seen. But the one huge gap, Seattle, they like the fullback. They like to put the 2 backs in there. The Rams don't do that. So, but otherwise, I mean, the way they attack teams vertically with their passing games, their structure with the wide zone run game, and mixing in play action. These are the 2 most lethal play action quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. Maybe Baker Mayfield in there with them. The top 3 MVP candidates in the NFC at the quarterback spot. I mean, these 2 teams do, I'm not going to say they're clones. They're not the Spider-Man meme quite yet, but like, it's not far off from that. They do a lot of things very similar. It's the way they disrupt on defense too, and creating turnovers and limiting the ability in the red zone. I mean, both these teams, they just mirror each other in so many ways in their stats. And I think that's what makes this, not just the fact it's 2-7-2 teams, it's the fact like these are legitimate top 5 teams in so many metrics, and they're going to be trying to beat each other at the other team's game. It's not going to be a case where you have contrasts, which could make this a really exciting game on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you touched on a little bit, and that has been the biggest difference for this Rams team. When Puka Nacua went down against the Ravens, everyone freaked out and, what's this Rams offense going to do? And Sean McVay, he innovated. I mean, you saw 12 personnel, you saw 13 personnel. Last week, 4 tight ends caught a pass, 2 caught touchdowns. Matthew Stafford has been mixing around more than he ever has as a Rams quarterback, and it's really opened some things up, especially in the red zone. They're a tough team to defend. There's not a ton of film on the Rams using that 13 personnel and 12 personnel. So, hey, maybe old Seahawks legend Colby Parkinson can also join the revenge game subplot. But coming up next, maybe we'll throw out some predictions. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll do some more X Factors. We'll see. That's coming up next on this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter, the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits. Reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. And I've noticed a lot of things. I mean, a lot of friends, family members using therapy, and they've used BetterHelp as well. And you got over 5 million people that have used BetterHelp with 30,000 therapists available. Finding support really is just a few clicks away. And this month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNFL. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn, because taking that step toward towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? And welcome back to this crossover showdown edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. So, Corbin, are you a predictions guy on your crossovers? Do you save that for your Friday episode? Do you even feel, I mean, I'm not even the biggest prediction guy. I will say, I mean, I'm the wrong guy to ask. I picked the Rams to win every single game this season. And guess what? If it weren't for bad special teams play, I probably would have been right for most of those games. But I think, look, SoFi Stadium, definitely being a home team for the Rams, you got to feel good about that. If you're Los Angeles, kind of the groove that they're in, I think it's pretty funny. We talk about all these similarities between these two heading into this matchup. Another thing they have in common too, Corbin, neither of these teams have trailed since week 6. The last time the Seahawks have trailed a game was when they were down 6-0 to the Jags, and they ended up winning that game 20-6. Last time the Rams trailed was week 6 against the Ravens when they fell behind 3-0 in the first quarter before scoring 17 unanswered points. So it's been a while since any of these teams have even trailed a game, let alone lost a game. But what say you about prediction-wise heading into this one?
Yeah, I saved my score prediction for the Friday show, and this is just like they would say with 2-7-2 teams trying to come up with a prediction in terms of score is going to be tricky. But one thing I really do like to look at on these crossover shows, though, and I know you're in agreement with me on this, is kind of an X factor on both sides of the ball, or maybe a special teams X factor that could really impact this game. And sometimes I go deep sleepers, especially in games like this. On the offensive side of the football, though, I'm not going to go that route. I'm going with a guy who has been a big part of this offense for a good chunk of this season. That's A.J. Barner. I think Barner's ability to create in the passing game, he's become their tush-push guy they use under center, and he's been extremely impressive doing those short yardage plays. The Seattle scrum, as I like to call it. They call it the barnyard, apparently, in Seattle. But that's been a guy that's been a constant all year. And I think that him against the linebackers and even the safeties for the Rams, I think Seattle can get some key matchups there and get him involved in their passing game. And on the defensive side of the ball, I've been raving about this kid all week, and I got to keep raving about him because Nick Eamon-Worry, man, the guy looks like he was developed in a lab. And now that he's starting to get his feet underneath him after missing a few games early in the year with an injury, like his ability to be able to defend speedy receivers at 6'3", 220. He's more like 6'4", 230. I've stood next to him. Like, the dude is massive. He can run in the low 4.3s, and you can line him up off the edge. You can blitz him against tackles because of his size. He can play linebacker. Like, that is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. And Mike McDonald's just starting to figure out everything he can do with him. He became the third player in NFL history to have 9 tackles, 4 pass breakups, and a sack in a single game last week. It's happened 3 times ever. And he did it as a rookie. This is a guy that could be really interesting to watch go against a number of the Rams' weapons. I could even see him going up against Nakua some if he's in the slot because he has the athleticism and he's got the size, as I mentioned. They list him 6'3", 220. I think he's bigger than that, but he can fly. And I think he's the X factor to watch, especially coming off Defensive Rookie of the Week honors.
Yeah, I got the vibe. I was picking up on a no score vibe. I don't really do mine until Friday too, but I just thought I'd dangle it out there. And I was actually going to ask you about the X Factor thing. So we're in a little bit of a mind meld here. X Factors, I love that. I'll give you mine. And the first one is the easiest one that I could possibly give, and that is the kicking game. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Rams kicking game has been a dumpster fire for most of the season. Their special teams operation has been atrocious. It's cost them in both of their losses this season. There really should have been wins, and one which would have been beating the reigning Super Bowl champions on the road, the Philadelphia Eagles, where you get 2 field goals blocked in the fourth quarter. Had happened in ages. Well, guess what? They've replaced their kicker. And it wasn't all the kicker's fault, by the way. Just the blocking schemes weren't there, kicks blocked. But we need to see our new kicker actually attempt a kick that's not an extra point, because he was 6 for 6 in extra points against the 49ers. And that's going to be a massive X factor. In a close game against really good teams, you're not going to score touchdowns every single drive, and you're inevitably going to have some field goal attempts, 30, 40, 50 yards, whatever they may be. So this will be his first NFL kicks in an NFL regular season game. And if you don't know his name, it's Harrison Mevis. And if you don't know his nickname, it's the Thicker Kicker. He's 245, 5'11". So love the nickname, but I need to see some game. I need to see him perform. So that's a major X factor. Another one we talked a little bit about earlier is Jared Verse. So Jared Verse, Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. He has all-pro level potential, just top of his position level potential. If he can be a game wrecker and get to Sam Darnold and find a way to just become disruptive and wreak havoc, that's going to go a long way to slowing down this passing game as much as possible, because we know that it's an explosive passing game. We know Jackson Smith and Jigba is truly world-class, top tier. You don't want him to run wild. Even when the Rams beat, even a couple years ago when he had this kind of coming out party, he had like 180 yards against the Rams. So he's had success against this team in the past. Emmanuel Forbes, as we mentioned, he's going to be another X factor too. And here's a secret little X factor for you. Nate Landman. So Nate Landman making a little over $1 million. His nickname is the Peanut Punch. He's got 9 forced fumbles in the last 3 years. That leads the entire NFL, and he does it by just simply punching the ball out. And I could see late in the game, maybe the Rams up by 3 and Seattle driving, and maybe it hit Zach Charbonnet. He's across the middle trying to get some extra yards in the Nate Landman peanut punches it out to save the game. And of course, that is a little fanfic, some dream scenario for me. But certainly Nate Landman is a guy to look at as well. And yeah, it's going to be an electric atmosphere at SoFi Stadium. I'm excited to play some big time football. And I think too, lastly here, Corbin, the NFC West circle of life is changing, right? It used to be 49ers beat the Rams beat the Seahawks, everyone beats the Cardinals. Now it's changing, right? Seahawks beating a bunch of teams. And I think this will go a long way into determining the new NFC West circle of life. If the Seahawks beat the Rams, will it be Seahawks beat the, you know what I mean? It's NFC West is changing, is kind of my point. And this is going to be a big test for both teams. And it will ultimately, I think, go a long way in determining who wins this division.
And not just that, who gets potentially the number 1 seed. That's what's so big about this game. You know, Seattle right now is the number 2 seed. The Rams are the 5, just because they have 1-1 record in NFC West. Seahawks are 2-1. This game is massive for multiple reasons, but if you're wanting that bye week, this is a game you really want to have.
Corbin, how the heck did you get away with having that Blue Jays hat behind you for your Mariners fans, man? They had to have been trolling you in the comments.
Oh, trust me, I've heard about it for the last month, man. I'm you know what though? I'm keeping it up there with pride, even though they lost to the Dodgers. I'm keeping it up there with pride.
Hey, man, stick with your team. That's all that matters. But that's going to do for this episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. Shout out to the 12. And always, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.